Hello everyone and welcome to a special shorter video today. We're going over the newest dev diary for Victoria 3 called Everything Companies 147 for the 1.9 update. Now, I have read through this dev diary this morning before work and I got very excited about it. 1.9 drops June 19th, but I really just want to dig into this now with company charters. And then this is of course with the DLC for reference. So companies are now going to get a select of 5 different charters that you can give to any of the companies. They have specified that you will get a number of free charters to hand out across every company, and that you can go over the limit with an additional cost of authority. And what gives you this kind of depends on various economic systems, technologies, and laws. So, or not laws, but great power status, like, well, really a rank. So minor powers won't have as much as great powers, unrecognized probably won't get as much, and the insignificants probably get nothing, as usual. So, sorry Luxembourg, sorry Krakow. But essentially, these 5 charters can be applied to just one company. You could spread them out equally, it's up to you. And the first one is the Colonization Charter, which is exactly what it sounds like. They are using the starting French company for their reference, as I recognize the name here. And so when you give a colonization charter to a company, the target state will be colonized. So you will pick the state that is going to be the first state they colonize. And a colony is created that's supported by the company there, which will have a bonus to colonization speed. And once fully colonized, it will actually be turned into a new subject country with the chartered company subject status. If you're wondering what that one is, the East India Company starts with that status at the very beginning of the game, as does the Dutch East Indies, I believe. And once it has now become a country with a charter company type system, wow, sorry, I just got home from work. It is pretty much like any other country with a caveat. It is now connected to that company of yours and receives a bonus to the construction of new buildings and throughput. The same as if it had that company itself. But it also gets a fraction of bonuses to any other buildings outside the company. So these chartered companies, which probably means this is going to be a buffer to the East India Company in 1.9, are going to get a small percentage of their throughput bonus and construction bonus, if I'm understanding this wording correctly, to every single building in their country, quote unquote country, without needing a company to run it. The downside, though, is that a chartered company country cannot have companies on their own. So the East India Company is only going to have the East India Company. Unless you go independent, then your own nation once again. But that is essentially what the colonization charter is going to be. Is you let a company colonize a piece of Africa, and it can grow. So those Congo colonies that you might sometimes establish after colonizing a lot of Africa. Why not just make that one massive company whose goal is to just make money? Why not do that instead? That's an option you have now in 1.9, essentially. The next one is the trade charter. It's very short, very straightforward. It says, basically, the company in question can build, buy, and run trade centers as if it's an entire additional thing you can do. The closest example of that would be the 2 canal companies you can make, where they are able to build shipyards and trade centers. Well, they don't really build trade centers in 1.8. It's more like... It's been a very weird bonus this whole time with the canal companies, and might be a reason why we never use them. But apparently in 1.9, since trade centers can be built, bought, and run, they'll be able to do that, as with any other company given the trade charter. And it states here that trade centers are added to the company's building types, making them company-owned trade centers that profit from the same bonuses as any other industry. So they'll get the same throughput bonus, the same construction speed bonuses, and trade centers run by a company additionally have a trade advantage bonus for goods that are produced by their building types. And the short that we've understand with trade advantage is that the higher the number, the better the trade center is going to run with that stuff. So that's very good. And we can dig more into that when they tell us more, unless I've missed it. But probably what's really more interesting, which really just got me up in arms and excitement, is the next couple of charters. The first one of those being the industry charter, which allows you to expand your company to a new type of business. And while they've scripted the options, looking at historic expansions and vertical integrations that industries could do, they are kind of looking into maybe adding additional expansions, or not. It depends. But remember, we're using the French company as an example that has the textile industry and the coal industry at the start. And since textiles use dye and cotton, it looks like what you could do to add it to them is you could make it to where the company has the right to build dye plantations, or the company has the right to build cotton plantations. So now they're building textiles, they're building coal mines, but they're also building cotton plantations. So they could make 50 cotton plantations, get a massive, say, 50% throughput bonus on them, and then build textile mills in the same state or another nearby state with good market access price impact. And now they're getting a throughput bonus on that too, further increasing their profits, because both of these buildings are getting that significantly increased throughput, but also fabric's a lot cheaper now because you have a lot more of it. Or, as they use in their example here, a furniture company can likely receive logging camps as an additional option if there's no other historical precedent. Then the next one, which I really love, investment charter. You can grant an investment charter to the companies to bolster their investment in foreign companies. And how that works is, and I'm going to use it word for word here, the companies can establish a regional headquarter in any country where they have at least 5 owned levels and you have foreign investment rights. So an example I could give here, and we are going to tag over to a save game that I have as soon as I can move the window. Let's say you're Russia right now, and let's say as Russia, you've got maybe instead of the Food Corporation as Russia, you have one of their special companies, the Vodka Monopoly Company, which can build food industries and vineyards. And let's say you have an investment agreement with France. I don't have it in this game, but in theory you can get it. Maybe you get proposed investment agreement right here, so you both can invest in each other. Then let's say your company of Vodka Monopoly buys up 5 vineyards in France. So say it buys these 5 levels, it owns these. You could then, with the appropriate agreement, you would then be able to establish a regional headquarters. And that regional headquarters has a few things that goes with it. It operates like the main company headquarters to display ownership of local investments and to collect the income, but it also sends the profits from that regional headquarters to your home country's investment pool, which means then, say, the main company or other companies can then use that to build even more wealth at once because they have more money to spend and buy things out at the same time, with a catch. And this is what I really love. The presence of a regional headquarters allows the company to use the foreign country's investment pool to construct or buy additional building levels. So this means if you have the Vodka Monopoly Company, you've got the regional headquarters in France as Russia, the regional headquarters there can use France's investment pool to build more vineyards and buy more vineyards in the country, and then collects the dividends from those vineyards and sends it back to Russia rather than France. Which means you could try to aggressively buy out a bunch of vineyards in France with a Russian company and then send the profits of those vineyards, which are feeding the French obsession with wine, back to Russia to get a larger investment pool. I don't know if you'll be able to tax the regional headquarters dividends. I assume not. It sounds like from the writing they've used here that it's going to head straight to the investment pool itself. So it's going to depend on the tax of the country they're in. But that's incredible. It means with enough of an aggressive forward acquisitions takeover of a country through economic means, you could use their investment pool to build up your investment in, again, French vineyards, for example, and then have all that money sent back to your country to then build an even larger investment pool to build more construction in France. Maybe you've got something in Prussia. Maybe you've got an agreement in America or Ching or Brazil, and just build up an even faster economic loop because you have so much investment going on. And this is amazing. And this is actually really cool too. Because foreign investment works in subjects, and not having the DLC can kind of make things a bit weaker if you get the Charters of Commerce, but not Spheres of Influence. They are going to be making it to where having either Sphere of Influence or the Charters of Commerce DLC will unlock foreign investment rights. So now you will only need one of the two DLCs to access foreign investment rights itself. But obviously, Spheres of Influence has more to do with subjects, and Charters of Commerce is going to have some of this additional company stuff that you otherwise wouldn't have. But this is incredible, and this goes into something even greater, something even better if you can combine it with the Monopoly Charter. And I think I had to kind of catch myself and not pass out from excitement at how amazing this is. It is exactly what it sounds like. The Monopoly Charter allows you to choose an industry or more of a company to grant them exclusive building rights of that industry. And that means it's actually really incredible because it does state here that if you use the industry charter to unlock logging camps for a company, so think of furniture company, you can then grant them a monopoly charter for logging camps. So yes, this is exactly what it sounds like. You could get a textile mill company and then grant it rights to build cotton plantations and then give it monopoly rights on both textile mills and cotton plantations. Either because you have enough of the charters to give, or you're spending 100 authority, it looks like, to give that. And monopolies work exactly how monopolies would in real life. Like a proper monopoly should, it increases the price of the produced goods. We modify the selling price in the building levels affected by a monopoly. The company's potential profits are increased by this because they're selling the good at a higher price. And this will actually impact the market price too, based on how much of that good is being produced by the monopoly itself. And yes, this can work in foreign countries. As part of a treaty, you will be able to request a country to give monopoly rights to one of your companies. So, going back to the French example in the investment charter, let's say you get investment rights into France, you get the regional headquarters with the vineyard. You could then make a treaty with France, perhaps a several decade binding treaty as an example here, or 5 years, whatever you want to do. You could have France agree that only your Russian company can build vineyards, can buy vineyards, so that only this Russian vineyard producing company can build vineyards, getting all the profits of vineyards and sending them back to Russia. So that's what I'm really excited about, is this investment charter, the industry charter, and the monopoly charter put together, because it sounds like, to me, that's something else to consider too, actually. You could use the monopoly charter to then buy out all the vineyards in France as Russia, and because it's all under monopoly, the wine will be more expensive despite having, say, equal supply and demand. It'll be maybe 15% more expensive. So instead of being 0% base price at an equilibrium, it ends up being plus 15% base price, making the company even more money, sending that money back to Russia's investment pool to just spiral out of control in a massive construction loop. I'm so excited to try something like that with food industries. Just imagine that. Not to mention, another thing about the monopolies too, that Wiz, one of the developers, confirmed, is that since the monopoly will actually increase the selling price, which will increase the market price, you could have an even larger level of supply without it becoming too unprofitable because of the enforced increase in price, which can actually help obsessions appear more often because obsessions, their chance partially relies on having up to 3 times more supply than demand. But to reach that, you have to heavily subsidize these businesses at minus 75% base price. But with a monopoly, you'll be able to have at least a modifier that partially increases that price, making it, easier to get the obsession. It's still no guarantee, but this would give us a tool, say, food industry monopoly that's producing a huge amount of liquor. Might make it easier to get a liquor obsession. That would be really exciting to do. And now we do have a number of free 1.9 update editions. So everything beyond this point is free. It's going to be added to the game no matter what you own for DLC. And the first thing is executives. We're getting new characters, rather a new role that characters can have. They do have new character traits as well, they're saying, but that they are not they're not done with it yet. They can't really show it, but it can be things like a free charter, a bonus to throughput for the company's levels, stuff like that. If a company does form a new country via the colonization charter, the executive does get to be the head of state. So, yes, the company literally owns the country, you do as they say. But it does state here that if they do have elections, that could change the ruler. So, you know, we've got some interesting little things here. And look, Alfred Krupp. Crump? I might be mispronouncing that, but I think you can guess the company he's probably in charge of if you've played Prussia at all. They are hoping to expand this to have political impact on your country, so they can be more like an actor, and where maybe giving them too many privileges makes them a danger. So what it sounds like is that they, through executives, they're hoping to give companies more political influence over the player in a form of active and reactive, where maybe they have so much power that maybe they can make a demand of you. Maybe they own so much influence over the industrialists here with this executive as an example. Maybe they make a demand for you to give them a monopoly right that you haven't granted them, perhaps. Just some spitballs for the future. They've also changed interfaces for companies. So it has changed now. This is now what it looks like. For your companies, you've got the company name here, its establishment date. This is where the headquarters is located, its productivity and prosperity, along with the prosperity bonus. And then you do also have its available industries, the one that it has the right to build. And I'm noticing prosperity, it looks like it maxes out at 100 now instead of 200. They did change it, so we will go over it. And we can see that certain companies apparently can make prestige goods. Judging by the little opium buds here and the opium buds there, it's probably safe to say this is some kind of opium prestige good. They're supposed to have a dev diary on that 2 weeks from now, I believe. So we'll probably find out more then. And they state that the addition of executives has kind of shifted some of it around, because you can see the executive right here. But there is now a second tab for companies as well, which will allow you to see everyone's company and their profitability. And you can organize this by country, name, the buildings, profit, however you want to do it. So you can see in this test game of theirs, the Confederacy ended up existing and made 2 companies. There's even some grain fellowships and societies too. The Russian-American company is interesting to see there all the time. And the East India Company is just making profit off of opium, so that's cool. And then we can see more of a country-specific feature. I just double-clicked there, my bad. Which does have a lot more information that I like. I'm guessing this is the Monopoly symbol right here, maybe? And then this looks like that's the, I think that's the one for the industry charter, if I'm correct. Because this guy has his hands on it, that looks like a Monopoly. And I think this is an addition, because these two are the usual for the Hudson Bay Company. In fact, if we tab over to the game real quick, we could probably answer that by just checking Canada, who might still have it if they are the correct ones to form it. They are not, so we're going to go into the company list really quickly here if I have Canada. I don't. Okay, so we're not going to go into that then. But I believe they only start with the logging camps and fisheries. And it looks like you'd be able to add the food industry to it as an example, which is interesting. I might be wrong about that, but I still like it. And then, oh, wait, we have the buildings right here. Fantastic. Hang on, we have it right here. So, yeah, this is monopoly rights. Industry rights is this. Then colonization, trade, investment. That's really cool. And it even shows you if you have any potentials, and I'm guessing the blue is any actives, judging by the 2 actives right here relative to these 2. That's really cool. And then you can check their assets. And it does say here the assets is a summary of... Oh, no, if you scroll down the first one, you'd see regional HQs and colonies. The second one, though, is assets, which I believe has everything together because it is all of their assets put into one. So it's kind of like looking at that big page of assets that you have in the game normally. That's all on one page together. You've got the countries and colonies here, even a little imposed law there, so you still have access to it. And it does stay here, it does include attached countries, colonies, and regional HQs and assets. And with a third tab that I think a lot of us are going to love, statistics. productivity, prosperity, company profit, their building levels. I really can't stop clicking. Food industries, all like when they got the building, when they had that many levels. I love that stuff. Now you get to see the company's lines go up in a variety of ways. It is multiple graphs to kind of see how they're growing. And there are some various changes they made too, which does include prosperity, judging by the look here. They have changed the way prosperity is gained for 1.9. They're making it so prosperity is a target value that is drifted towards instead of a constant upwards or downwards movement. Target value is influenced by the current productivity and the number of staffed building levels the company owns, with the popularity of the executive having an impact too. So kind of like an agitator impacting political movements. Well, that's interesting then. So I think that means you need 100 prosperity to activate the bonus still. So it might make it harder to keep prosperity up, but it also might make it easier. Because it seems like if you have enough staffed levels, unless there's a cap for that we're not seeing, it seems like with enough staffed levels, you would just hit prosperity all the time then if this would just give 100, unless negative productivity or low productivity causes a negative. But my guess here is that this is going to have like a plus 30 or plus 50 cap where you can get up there, but then you need some productivity to get the rest of the way. Or maybe they'll let you subsidize prosperity and you can pretend to be reaching those targets while secretly never reaching them, like you're some kind of command economy that's never meeting its targets but pretends to always meet them. One last thing they want to mention as well, which is what I want to talk about now as well. Companies will be able to buy building levels owned by financial districts and manor houses. So no longer are you going to have that cat and mouse game, as they mention here, where maybe your company buys the food industry first they built, or maybe your financial district buys the food industry. So you've got your iron mine you want to get to your company, but the financial district keeps buying it. The good news is that companies in 1.9 will be able to buy out those buildings from the financial districts and manor houses, which means you don't have to play a cat and mouse game anymore of buying the buildings and then hoping your company is the one to buy them out later. So you can actually really establish true monopolies in your country and hopefully in foreign countries, but we're gonna have to probably fiddle around with that one a bit, which is just fantastic in my opinion. They are talking about prestige shields on May 29th. We get the changelog June 12th. This is shaping up to be a great update that we're supposed to get in a little over a month now. And I mentioned it before, I think my biggest excitement is with this Monopoly charter. I cannot wait to play around with that. They have a little Monopoly joke right there, do not collect 200. I think Monopoly charter and the investment charter are going to be probably the best two ones ever. The potentials you have with that are staggering to me. If I were to just dig into this a little further here, we're talking you could have the Food Corporation of Russia owning food industries in Austria, Prussia, France, Britain, Spain, the US, Brazil, Qing. The list goes on as long as you have the influence and authority to do it. So you could have this singular company owning all of these food industries. I'm just using food industries as an example because I like them way too much. You're obviously free to use whichever ones you prefer, because some of them do have better productivity than others. But it's just that one good example I like to latch onto. And you have to think, they're going to get this throughput bonus that I would have right now. They would be getting 63% on everything, rounding down. And they would be producing it in all of those markets. All of those markets which would have their own grocery prices. And if they're a monopoly with full monopoly rights in all of those countries, they might be raising it by 15%, 20, 25. We don't know what the maximum number is. I'm not aware either. But if we're saying that a monopoly is going to make this minus 12% Russian price for groceries be closer to plus 3% instead, with the exact same number of sell orders and buy orders, that's nuts. That's a significant increase in profitability. And while that means, yeah, your pops would be spending more, it also means your food industries are making more money that you can tax for dividends, or that they can pay a higher wage for their workers, as an example. And not to mention, if you have more people working anyway, with a higher workforce ratio, they could stomach that price and offset it. And if it's someone like the impoverished, they're usually not buying your groceries anyway at first. It's usually your upper strata anyway. Groceries are just one example, though. What about if you're making liquor and all your liquor is being made from there instead of rye farms? In fact, Wiz did show something else as well to us in the Victoria 3 server, the public server, is that the generic food industry can be given the right to build livestock ranches and wheat farms. That was shown to us in the server. And so that means, like, these wheat farms in Kiev, for example, you could give a monopoly right for those as well, and that would actually affect the grain price being higher. Even sugar price, if the primary source of your sugar is those wheat farms. I don't know if it counts trade routes, but trade's being changed too, so who knows. It would actually make fruit not as cheap. It would be slightly more profitable. I'm already thinking of scenarios of trying to create food-based monopolies just to see what happens. I know a higher food price might hurt standard of living, but that could be really funny to watch. Or monopolies on textile mills. Like, forget iron mine companies. We're gonna monopolize the textile mills. We're gonna make people pay 15% higher base price for clothes. And we're gonna make fabric more expensive at the same time to pay for it. Which could be really fun, actually, for your cotton plantations here. To just make even more money, because cotton plantations always make a lot of money. Especially if it's in the United States sometimes and it's owned by a company. Oh, well, maybe not these. Yeah, I see 16 base price here because of slavery. That could create interesting implications. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. This dev diary is an absolute exciting delight to me. I cannot wait to see what else it comes out with prestige goods. I can't wait to play with the Monopoly Charter. And I'm going to see you all next time.